False start.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave. I'm joined as always with my co host, Greg. And today is a day episode, which matters nothing to anyone listening.
Although, what I will say about a day episode is I'm feeling a little more energized
Okay.
because
All right.
it's middle of the day, not
So,
end of the day.
are you saying majority of the time that people have been listening to you, you feel depleted of energy
That's right.
and you are putting in half the effort?
I'm putting in 140% because I'm chugging with everything I got. What I'm saying is I'm actually paradoxically putting in less effort, and I think I'm going to be getting more output.
So can expect a worse episode today
Hmm.
because it's during the day and you have more energy.
That's right. Usually bad, but buckle up.
Even worse. All right. Well, starting off, I just want to welcome some of our new Patreon members, and I will do my best not to butcher your names, but that might be rather difficult with
Gonna
these
happen.
two. Um, BD, Greg,
NQ, that's what I would say.
Nick, thank you. That's what I was going to say too. I had a tickle in my throat, so I let Greg finish my sentence. And Henrik Skog. I don't think there's any other pronunciation of that I
Yeah.
could come up with.
Cool name.
Very cool name. Thank you both for joining the Patreon. We appreciate it. We've been encouraging everybody to join. So every week we see new people join, it just makes us happier and happier. Greg is literally bursting with happiness right now. I can sure you can all tell if you're on Patreon, you can see his face. He looks like he's going to explode. Holy crap.
Gonna be happier.
Settle down there, Greg. Um, So yeah, thank you to Patreon members. The reason we encourage people to go on Patreon, well, first off, it's more community supportive. I would say there's ability to have, chats and ask questions and better way to have dialogue, I think,
Mhm.
than Spotify or Apple. Obviously, it's a little more challenging on there. And also, we have tiers where you can get bonus episodes and content, and who knows what comes down in the pipeline. So if you're on there already, obviously, you'll be included in whatever goes on.
And when in the early days of podcasting, I would always wonder to myself, what do these people look like? You can find that out.
You can see us.
I mean, that's cool.
If you want to, you might regret it or you won't. I don't know.
You can recommend that we wear certain things. Is that something we're willing to do?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Greg will wear certain things if you
Oh, yeah.
recommend it.
I'll wear certain things. I mean,
Like
within
certain
reason.
things. Yeah, certain.
Yeah.
All right. And then also every week we've been going on social media and going on Patreon, seeing if people have any questions they want to ask us to answer on air. So this week we got a question from Lorraine. Greg, you didn't already answer this on
I
social
didn't. I
media. All right,
refrained.
good. Wow. All right.
Pretty
Did you
good.
just miss it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I would have answered it.
Because Greg
But
has been notorious for answering the questions that we're supposed to be saving for the episode. So, anyways, Lorraine, who also, let us know that she's been listening regularly. So we appreciate that support. And Lorraine, if you're listening to this, hop on over to Patreon. We'd appreciate that too. But wherever you're listening, we appreciate it no matter what. So her question is, how was it for both of you starting as therapists? And part two of the question, what would you recommend to young therapists? Um, Greg, do you have any off the top of your head responses to that?
yeah, I used to, and still in some ways do, like there's such a, for a new therapist, sense of urgency to get every patient right and to try to be listening for the right time to inject this intervention that you learned or whatever. I think like maybe take some of the pressure off yourself and just remember that you being there, sitting with that person, trying to understand them, genuinely trying your best is helping them.
Yeah,
Don't yeah like that's what I remember, like putting a lot of pressure on myself early on.
yeah. So I agree with that actually. That statement of like feeling like you're supposed to be doing a certain feeling like all the theoretical approaches you're learning about are the most important things. There are literally people who will come to you who just need someone to hear them and to be present with them, and just for some people they have no social outlets, and you were
Hmm.
going to be that thing. So I guess that was the big thing that I learned is like my function is different for every person, and I have to understand that before I start to put judgment on the work that I'm doing with them. Like, what is the point of this? And I mean, at some point, yeah, you should start to, if you feel like all I do is, meet with this person regularly and they just tell me about everything going on in their life and I don't feel like I'm doing anything, at some point you can reevaluate and say, you know, can we make some goals here? But
Hmm.
you have to first be there for the person and get to know the person.
Yeah, and I think another thing is identifying what each person is hoping to get out of therapy is a very important step that you sometimes forget, right? Because like it's
Yeah.
like you don't want to decide their aim, you want them to decide their aim.
Sure.
And obviously things will change once that sort of gets resolved, which inevitably if you're the worst therapist in the world, 9 out of 10, well, I say 8 out of 10 times the problems will get better as time goes on regardless. And our hope is to just kind of make those, you know, lessen the time that people are suffering, I think.
Yeah.
But to just make sure that you know what you're aiming at so that you can kind of measure if you're getting there. Sometimes when you start, you're like just kind of all over the place, not really knowing and feeling lost, you know?
Yeah. And just to answer, I guess, the first part of that question, starting off as a therapist, I mean, Greg and I talk about this all the time. It really felt like we got thrown into the fire.
Hmm.
And plus, we felt like we were at a major disadvantage because we started during COVID. But if anything, I always say now that I reflect on it, I actually think we were given a huge advantage because we were thrown in and had to quickly learn to do the work of hybrid therapists.
Hybrid and yeah, and also like every age group, we weren't in like a school setting or anything. It was like everything's walking in your door. I had everything from psychosis to just like your run-of-the-mill sort of baseline anxiety. I mean, it was just it ran the gamut. Substance use disorder, everything comes in that place. So,
Yep.
um,
And we had to get used to doing telehealth really quickly. We had to get used to someone coming in a time of major anxiety for everybody. So we were wearing masks at some point during sessions,
yeah,
propping open windows in
right.
in the cold weather. It was a wild time, and honestly, I loved it. I would say that it was scary, but also it kind of went in like a blur
Yeah.
because we didn't have a lot of time to sit around and just process what we just went through. But yeah, it just felt very fast. And I think I'm working with a lot of interns at our practice now, and it feels when they tell me how slow the process is going for them, I'm like, wow. Like there's some that have waited a year to get their first patient that are interns at our practice. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. So I get
Yes.
a full
They're
caseload like the
so
third day.
exactly. So they're working with intake more, all stuff we couldn't do because we couldn't sit with people close proximity and they needed therapists during the time, I believe. So we just
Yeah.
kind of skipped a lot of the processes and
For better or for
yeah,
worse.
for better or worse.
Yeah, we
But
don't know.
I do think it kind of made us not think about it a little bit more, which is probably helpful because I probably would have been scared shitless if I
Yeah.
did sit and stop and think about what I was about to do.
That's sometimes that's the best way. Like we didn't have time to be nervous. It's
Yeah,
just do.
right.
And that's why honestly, Dave, like my approach to therapy is slowly transitioning from talk therapy to do therapy. I really like think that that's, you know, we mentioned it before, like people paying more attention to the things that they're doing versus how they're feeling. Like don't think about how you want to feel as much as what you want to do. That I really am becoming like a really firm believer in that. But then we're gonna get off track. So what do you say we start this old episode here? And I say old. It's a Freudian slip because is this an episode about us?
Or maybe somewhere we've already been.
Oh, good, don't, Dave. I, look, maybe, but we're talking about midlife crisis today, and typically this is something that happens between the ages of 40 and 60. And if you're 60 and you haven't had your midlife crisis, go ahead and have it before you pass away. Because that would be great, right? I mean,
Jeez.
but the reality is, like, when I saw those numbers, I'm like, 60 midlife crisis? What are we trying to, what are we, Moses?
Would you think that was too old to have a midlife crisis?
I think so.
Yeah, I can picture 58-year-olds, 59-year-olds have a midlife crisis. You can't.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, you can't call it a midlife crisis. What do we live
Well,
in
if they
today?
live to 100
Okay.
and they're like,
You're not, you're not allowed.
it's a roundabout. They can't
All
say
right.
like almost or sort of midlife. They're just
All right. You're fair. All right.
it's
Fair
in the
enough.
middle
Yeah.
somewhere. 40 to 60 is a decent range.
40 to 60 is decent range. I'll give you that. I would have said 35 to 55,
Okay.
50. But anyways, it's I like the
Well,
description of go
that
ahead.
might be a question that we address later. Could with the way the world is today, could midlife crises
Keep being
could
pushed
could
back.
societal issues or the way society advances cause midlife crises to happen sooner than previous generations?
Oh, I was thinking later with the arrested development
Well,
of a lot of
maybe we can chat about that, Dan, because I
oh
think that's
yeah,
a
we're
good
having debate
conversation.
right now.
Yeah, for sure.
But I like it how it's described oftentimes as a rite of passage, something that we don't really a situation that doesn't really exist in society anymore, like this deep, profound self-reflection that is marked in life. Like there's no, I mean, I guess this is like a sort of based on like tribal development and there's rites of passage, I guess graduation and I don't know, Bob mitzvahs. I can't really think of a ton of rites of passage that happen anymore, but this specific one often manifests as anxiety, boredom, which makes sense. Regret is one, like a big one, I think. Impulsive behavior, trying to regain or realign with the ideas of who you used to be or who you always wanted to be and just kind of never were, right?
Mm.
But I did read this thing when I was researching, and I wanted to get your take on what you thought of it. And I won't say the second half of this quote because I don't think it's relevant, but Lorne Michaels of SNL fame says that a man in his 40s is at the peak of his powers. What do you think about that?
I agree.
I do too.
As a man in my 40s, I
Yeah, yeah.
agree.
And in
Uh,
my 30s, I would have disagreed.
yeah, I did. Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, like perspective. Like who's listening to that quote would probably um, differ the response. I think in my 30s, I was like, oh, wow, I feel so much more developed and self aware than I was in my 20s. But yeah, now that I'm in my 40s, it's like feels world apart from my 20s and feels even more developed and self aware and motivated
Yeah, and because
and
there's still
assertive
energy, there's still strength. There's more. We're
and
more. I
time's ticking,
know,
Greg.
I know. Is there anything that like? Well, it's sad, and also because I was really reflecting on this, and like a sad part of this is there's things in life that now we are too old for. So like my son is going through this like thing where he's either gonna be a nuke in the Navy or he's gonna go to Annapolis actually, right? We're talking to like trying to get like senators' recommendations and everything like that. So it's a big deal, a big huge deal, opportunities I never had. But when I start looking at like these cutoff ages, I'm like, oh, even to be enlisted, it's like early 30s, mid 30s. Um, so like that's out of the picture. Not that I not that I'm like raring to do it, but it's funny that there's things that we're genuinely too old for now. Like we are
There's
on the
have
decline.
you seen the commercial where the guy's in the car with his wife or whatever and he's looking out the window longingly and she's like, I wonder what he's thinking. And then you hear his inner thoughts and he goes, I wonder if I'm too old to skateboard. I think that's like such a like interesting thing because it's yeah, how many of us have had that thought like, oh, there's this thing I want to do, but am I too old for it?
I put on checkered Vans this morning and I thought to myself, am I too old for that? It's funny. I mean, and like maybe.
Who's to say?
I don't know, and it's like I don't know. There's a lot of anxiety, and which is common, stemming from fears of aging. I'm afraid of aging. Like life is short, and I still feel inside like I'm 25. Like I still have the same sort of mindset. Like that's like the little secret that no one tells you. Like your brain doesn't change much. You still feel like the same person when you're 19 and when you're 40, whatever we are, right? I don't want to give too much away. Early 40s. Um, and it's natural to have this irritability and I guess sadness and restlessness. And I think most importantly, nostalgia for the past that you either miss or think you miss or are misremembering. And we have a great episode on nostalgia if anybody wants to look back into that. But for a second, let me talk about the crisis component of this whole thing. So when you think of um, midlife crisis, you often think of like convertibles and younger partners and all these kinds of things. Like, but what we're really saying is like impulsive, drastic, and sometimes honestly destructive actions to try to regain this sense of youth and freedom. So like maybe you change careers, maybe you get a divorce, or maybe you start making major purchases. And I think part of the problem with people, maybe going through this thing is they're noticing everything they don't have and not noticing what they do have. So it's like, for me, do I miss my 20s? Not really. Like you couldn't pay me. I'll say something right from my life. Yesterday, I took the boys to Monster Truck, whatever the heck, right? Um, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
monster
yeah.
truck.
So driving around downtown Providence after 9:30, I'm good. Like I saw people like going into the bars and stuff like that. It was 11 degrees outside, and of course I remember like going out with everyone, and the girls would be like wearing like a shirt
Yeah,
barely in the
yeah,
winter, and it's like, get me home.
yeah.
Get me get me a blanket and put it on my legs like I'm FDR, like I'm 71 years
Hmm.
old. I mean, I just don't miss that. And I think that's like on some levels, and we can talk about how we feel about our own sort of midlife crisis, but um it's painful, right? It's this psychological shift from first adulthood to second adulthood. Like, so the first one, like we're focusing on like achievement and family and developing. And the second part is like finding meaning and finding out who we really are. It's more like relaxed, I
And the
think.
midlife crisis is telling you to dump all of that,
Dump
make
it all.
change it all. You
Yeah.
know, the difference between what you're describing, Greg, and someone who's going for a crisis, just to like kind of highlight that, is you drove by seeing people going into bars and you're like, that I do not want to do that. I am so glad I am not in that stage of my life right now. The midlife crisis person drives by, same scenario, has their two boys, just went to Monster Trucks, and says, wow, I just went to Monster Trucks and they're going to go have an amazing time at this bar right now. And I wish that was me.
Yeah.
My life
That's
doesn't allow that
interesting.
anymore. Right.
Maybe it's gonna hit me in my 60s. Maybe I'm gonna be one of those.
You never had a moment where you were like feeling opposite of what your life was and wishing you were engaging in things that your life can't allow at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I am. I suppose on some level, like maybe I was never like a club guy, but to go to a dive bar and put on the jukebox and kind of like the anything can happen sort of feeling.
I don't know why, but I just got this picture of you on like Thelma and Louise, and like you're this bad boy at the jukebox with like cigarettes rolled up in your sleeve, and
Had the cigarettes going too.
oh
You know,
boy,
and you know what? Something for me is like, okay, this is like a sad part of I can't smoke cigarettes. I can't even eat like salty things anymore because like my heart could
well,
stop.
you could.
I could. I could.
That might be a different thing, Greg.
Yeah, that's
This
something
is
else.
because you,
That's something
you
else.
damaged your body significantly over the years, and
Yeah.
now you can't do those things.
Maybe that's why.
That's
Maybe
not
I'm
a
done.
midlife crisis. That's just where you put yourself.
Maybe I'm
Sorry.
dealing with end of life issues instead of like midlife. So there's an evolutionary perspective to this, of course. And I love an evolutionary perspective. Everyone knows that about me. It is
Everyone.
increasingly seen as a necessary normal life transition rather than a failure, providing an opportunity for midlife alchemy. So, in other words, to transform into a more authentic, conscious, empowered person. Um, okay, kind of. But I will say something about alchemy. We love The Alchemist. And also, I've been using this phrase anxiety alchemy. What do you think about that? Where like instead of using anxiety as this thing that's like keeping us away from someone, it's like it's excitement. It's not fear. It's preparedness. It's not, something negative. Trying to twist that. Maybe
Sure.
that might be something for a different episode. But Dave, take us a little bit further. Maybe I do have a little bit too much energy in the day, and it's good that we do this.
So French folklorist Arnold van Gennep, uh, in The Rites of Passage in 1909, described ancient ceremonies that celebrated an individual's transitions as passages of life. And he saw these changes not as crises, but as opportunities for a person to accumulate whatever new knowledge, accumulate new knowledge, and then kind of advance their status in society. So, like, as you age, obviously you become wiser and then you are seen differently within your community. But the thing that's noticed is that, like, Western society really lacks rituals that
We
guide
do.
people through these things. We, like you had mentioned before, I feel like we have a lot of rituals, quote unquote, for younger year stuff like sweet 16s when you turn 18. There's privileges. I think that's how we kind of view things. There's like privileges that you earn based on age, which I also think is kind of messed up, because just because you're a certain age does not mean you're a certain development. So maybe that's actually something that's wrong with our societies. We don't look at developmental age, we look at actual age, which is different for everybody. But after 21, let's say, there's really nothing that acknowledges that people continue change beyond that.
Yeah,
And I think that's a big part of the problem here. And I think that's a part of the problem for 20-year-olds who deal with
totally.
a lot of existentialism.
Hmm.
I think it's a part of a problem for 30-year-olds who kind of look around and say, like, well, they're trying to like do a little bit of self-discovery, and they're finally like, well, I know females probably sooner than males, but there's all these developmental stages that don't really get acknowledged. And then there's this one that we're talking about today that definitely does not seem to get acknowledged in our world. And when someone struggles with it, they are looked at well, first of all, it's midlife crisis, Greg. Don't you feel for a long, long time it was kind of almost a joke?
Yeah.
You made fun of people when
Sure.
they struggled with their midlife crisis. It wasn't something looked at sympathetically. It was looked at as like, look at that fool. He just went out and bought a new car. He did this change to himself. Look how he's dressing now. It was looked at as silly, right?
He grew
Childish.
his mustache.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we don't even look at it with empathy for what that person's going through at that time. I just
Yeah,
think that's
you
really
know,
fascinating.
I think what I think is fascinating is like maybe finding or like looking at these rites of passages for like in these ancient rites of passages and figuring out what they were exactly and what is still could be useful because I think that could do a lot for society. Like this I especially well, I mean, I would say especially young, but going forward, it's like everyone forgets about our in America, it feels like our culture is based around whatever like the 20s are doing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that they have a definite influence.
Like,
And
yeah,
actually,
it's
I think it's
everything.
starting to get even younger if you think about it with just like trends and things like that. It
Yeah,
almost feels like adults are imitating trends that 10, 12-year-olds are doing.
6, 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Um, so the idea that people may experience dramatic psychological changes in midlife was kind of introduced by our boy
Mm.
Carl Jung, the great psychologist in the 1930s. And Jung compared midlife to noon in a diurnal cycle, which I'm not totally sure what that means. Diurnal cycle, maybe you know.
Yeah.
Did I even say it
No,
right?
no, I just it's like noon is like technically half day.
Half day.
So,
Yeah.
you know
So
what I
this is
mean?
talking about like a clock.
Yeah, like halfway.
All right. So at about noon in the cycle of life, he theorized that significant change is most likely to take place in the human psyche. And he didn't see midlife as a time of crisis, but one in which like someone could rediscover qualities and just kind of like what you said earlier, um, rediscover qualities that have been underdeveloped or neglected during the first half life. But I think the problem here is aside from that, we don't really guide people with midlife crisis. So as we mentioned, it's like a time of change, and change brings on anxiety, and anxiety starts to bring on a whole ton of thoughts and fears and regrets and all those different things, which I think is what leads people to make impulsive and poor choices during this time because they're dealing with it alone.
Yeah,
So
like you want to feel a certain way again. I love that young sort of idea that rediscovering qualities about yourself that
Yeah.
were underdeveloped or even neglected. Like, so it's like, what was I good at? What did I used to enjoy? And maybe the monotony of my career and everything. And now that I'm a little more established, maybe I have a little bit more time to revisit things like that.
And kind of thinking also, like, instead of only regret, it could be like, I didn't do this thing yet, or oh, look where I am.
And at a
I
time,
should be
yeah.
doing way more. And then you start to look at all the things that prevented you, in your opinion, from doing more. And I can envision a person just kind of freaking out and saying, like, I need to start over. I'm not on the path that I'm supposed to be on, rather than how do I take my time here and evaluate the things going on in my life and start to make positive changes so I can advance to my full potential if I don't feel like I'm meeting it. But you're right, it's time. It's all based on time and with
It
that
is.
fear of not having time. So it's all choices made without full thought here.
You know when you're a kid and it's summertime and you're having the best summer of your life, and then like halfway through summer you start to get maybe even a little anxious, like, oh geez,
Summer's almost over.
yeah, it's kind of like that.
I never was that person who said, "Oh, I can't wait for school to go back.
Oh my
I'm
God,
really
I
ready
don't
for summer to
understand
be
that
over."
person. I don't
Yeah,
understand that person.
I dreaded school to
I
be
would love to go
over.
back to school now if it was free and all that. Like I love school now as an old fart because you
Yeah,
just kind of sit there and that's cool. But when I was a kid, no way. Get me out in the sun. Get me drinking out of a smelly old hose,
yeah.
riding my bike wherever.
One component of midlife crisis that I think we don't acknowledge too much. So obviously, it's stressors. It's based on stressors that are influenced like by our age, the time, marital status, unresolved issues from the past, fear of missing out. But like the big thing no one mentions is a lot of it is also fear of death.
Yeah.
So it's like avoiding death or getting as much done before death. It's fear of that death and what if I die and I didn't do everything I set out to do or I missed out on something.
Yeah, and
And I
it's like
don't think we talk about the death component of it.
and also I think it's like you've never changed your metrics for measuring success. It seems like the people who really suffer difficult, like with real difficulty with this, I mean, just in my opinion, is people who like using the same measurements of success that they did in their 20s in their 40s, where it's like, oh, now I never got that convertible, I better get it. And it's like, well, look around and maybe there might be things in your life that you didn't know you wanted that you have that are more, kind of like I don't know, like Dave, you're running, you have a wildly successful little side gig that's like gains a ton of popularity. Maybe that wasn't a goal. Um, m- Maybe it was, I don't know. But like there's things in your life that are there that are successes that you may not be paying attention to. And those things that you thought were supposed to be successes in your 20s maybe are kind of meaningless now, I think.
Yeah. Or another way that I've kind of been able to accept my life in, in and I say that like in with meaning fully. Like sometimes you just have to accept things in your life, right? Not
Completely.
everything is exactly what
Completely,
you
dude.
dreamed it was going to
Yeah.
be or you envisioned it to be. But instead of focusing, so, like you said, so much on the things that didn't go exactly how I wanted, or didn't go in the direction that I thought they would, or don't look how I thought they would when I was younger, I focus more on the aspects that are more positive,
Hmm.
that where I actually maybe surpassed an expectation I had, or even though this isn't exactly what I want, what I thought I my life would look like, let me look at what I have here and like try to show some appreciation for what I've been able to build, what I've been able to create for my life. And if there are areas that I think aren't where they should be, I'm going to put some effort in, figuring out how to get them there. You know, I just wanted to tail back 1 second though. That fear of death, I also just thought about why midlife could be revolving around that so much. Think about how many losses you've had in your life when you're in your 20s or in
Hmm.
your 30s versus by the time you got to 40.
Hmm.
For many people, 40s and 50s, you've experienced significant loss by that point in your life, whether it's caregivers, parental figures, siblings, close family members, obviously grandparents by that point. Um, you've just dealt with so much loss by that time. And obviously loss of different relationships throughout your life. It's a time where mortality becomes way more in your forefront of your thought process versus in your 20s. And I'm trying to think how old I was when I had my first like significant, you know, loss. And I know it was probably late 20s, early 30s by the first time I had my first one. I was very fortunate for that. I know not everybody's that
Mhm.
fortunate. But flash forward to my age now, and it's like
It's happening. Yeah,
significantly
like it's
more
happening.
than at first. Yeah. So it does. And
Yeah.
you start to think about the other people that it's inevitably going to happen to.
So I'm glad you bring that up because I was going to talk about like reasons. I guess you could say triggers, but I don't love that word. But like reasons or like things that could like the catalyst for, maybe falling into a midlife crisis or maybe some alchemy here, a rite of passage, which I think is like a way better way to look at it.
Yeah.
So, like you said, Dave, obviously death of a family member or, maybe someone close to you. I think career related stress is obviously a huge one. Whether, you know what I mean? It's like they all start like that. And I remember that movie Falling Down, great movie.
Oh my God. I love that movie.
That's a great
Yeah.
movie. That's a midlife crisis and a half. Um, but like the young 20 something got promoted above you and you're like this is crazy, like that.
Michael Douglas. It
Michael
was Michael
Douglas, yes.
Douglas. Yeah. If you
Yes.
haven't seen Falling Down, everyone, please give that a watch. I mean, I haven't seen it in ages, so I don't know if it's a little dated now, but it is
Yeah.
literally watching a man's midlife crisis, his world crumbling apart. And it's fascinating.
What about maybe we could do a whole episode on that movie actually.
Yeah.
The yearning for a younger partner,
Partner.
you know? Um again, something that's going to lead to the destruction of maybe something you've built over the years, right? And it shouldn't be so reliant on um physical appearance at that point.
I
Like,
you know it I wonder if it's I mean I'm sure physical appearance for
you
individuals
still got it, kind of thing.
I'm sure that's part of it, but also the other part of it is uh the energy and outlook on life that they might be looking for is what the change is, why that change is being pursued. Like a younger person is obviously going to have a much more enthusiastic outview of life versus someone similar age to you that has been through all the things that you've been through, right?
Yeah.
It's apples and oranges. If you're in your 40s and you start looking for someone in their 20s or early 30s, their worldview is going to look differently.
Yeah, and what about what's interesting here is as we're saying this, I'm like, boy, this is a very like male centric episode, but women obviously are having,
Oh,
like their menopause is a thing, the children are leaving home. They're same things, right? We live in like a society now where like things are as getting better, close to equal, not in every way, not perfect, but like we're heading in the right direction, I think. Um, I think a lot of the same things, right? Like even maybe the woman looking at her husband being like, "What the hell?" You know what I mean? Like, all these same things. This is. I don't want to like come off and say this is like a men episode. This is people
no, and you know what, Greg? I'm glad you brought that up because as we were talking before, I think we kept kind of referring to like this male
because we're
version of
thinking of
this thing.
ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
It is us literally thinking about us going through this. However, another thing that's changed obviously over the years is the male female roles in relationships. And I think it was easier for a male to go through a midlife crisis if they were the head of the household. They had the financial, they were the one bringing in you know the finances for the family. They have a lot more access to things. If a woman's primary role was like to take care of the home previously, obviously her access to the things that could let her have a midlife crisis are more
Yeah.
limited. But I think that's changing, as we mentioned, with like more women in the workforce, more equal power dynamics and relationships and things like that.
Like
uh
Sex and the City kind of stuff. Like I think that
yeah,
this is like way
I
more
think it's a human experience.
absolutely like the profile is increasing, now that like the people like the women in the workforce, it's like that's not even a conversation. Like in my mind, it's like not even a conversation anymore. It's like obvious, especially in our line of work where it's mostly women,
Yeah.
right? And I think that like it very closely resembles a midlife crisis for women closely resembles to that of
Yeah.
what men go through. And
I
I
mean,
think we should bring that up. Like, please, like women listening, give us, we're just a couple of dopey guys. Like, give us your perspective on this. Like, I would love to hear that. I would love to like
yeah.
understand that better.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the factors that fuel this, it's
Mm,
just, I mean, the same factors affect women these days. So it's not like there's any difference. They're going to have the same fears and, regrets and all that stuff. So I 100% think that this affects most. And I would love to see this is I don't know if there's a term for this, Greg, but it almost feels like sometimes we deal with diagnoses that were predominantly viewed as a certain gender.
mm,
And I think that over time, as society changes, sometimes we're going to have to reevaluate that and kind of redesign that because, like this one, I think it can affect both genders pretty equally. Um,
just like honestly, I see like we used to think of borderline that way. For like overwhelmingly female. But I meet a lot of male borderlines.
Sure.
So
Sure.
like,
It just probably presents differently. So maybe it gets, and that's the other thing. Sometimes diagnoses present different for different genders, and then they get misdiagnosed
hmm,
because it might look like something else. So, possible presentation or behaviors of someone going through a midlife crisis. They may act out in angst.
hmm.
They may be more impulsive and reactive, make out of the ordinary decisions, appear more defensive, especially when confronted about their actions. And they have a tendency to be attracted to people, objects, and environments that have high zest and appeal. And that's kind of what I mean with that, might be what they mean when they say looking for a younger partner at some point, because they might feel that that's going to be more exciting for them, you
Hmm.
know?
Sounds exhausting.
Greg is clearly not going through a midlife crisis, so that is very positive to hear. Greg,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Just wait.
Yeah.
may so the result of the midlife crisis may result from unresolved issues from the past and like this urge to act on an impulse that has been dormant. So this could be stuff that's like sitting inside, maybe felt like unaccessible, or just things that like you didn't feel or prioritize at one point in time, and then suddenly it's kind of like, why didn't I ever do these things?
This is
Or
my last chance.
this is my last chance. So I think that's a big aspect of it.
When I'm laying in my bed in the old folks' home, like, am I okay with the memories that I have? Or,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
or do I wish that I had done things a little bit differently?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And also people with low self-esteem or a need to compete with others, um, may have an increase in potential to engage in midlife crisis behaviors because they're probably more apt to compare themselves to others or compare where they're at versus where they see other people at. And of course, when you're doing that, just to keep this in mind, you're always comparing to people who you feel are doing better than you. You're never comparing yourself to people doing worse than you. So you're almost setting like this bar for yourself that's not even realistic because it's not how everyone's doing. It's just the people that you're kind of pinpointing. Um, yeah. So, I mean, kind of regurgitating the same information, but like essentially this period in life is one that like you may experience the high levels of anxiety, self-doubt, depression, and existential angst. And you start to just reevaluate your life choices and decisions. And yeah, that just comes out with impulsivity, such as like quitting your job, starting a new relationship, or engaging in more high risk activities than typical.
So yeah, and I guess like a question would be like, what makes this a crisis, and like, what's the difference between a crisis and just making like potentially out of character decisions at this point in life? Like, what part of this is a crisis and what part of this is natural? And I think like the amount of or level and the amount of like thought put into decisions and the intention behind the decisions.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like if you just are, there's a healthy way to notice that you're, I don't want to say running out of time, but like there's things in your life that you had hoped you'd accomplish, and there's still some time for that to accomplish those things. And there might genuinely be some urgency to that, and that might be realistic, and that might be okay. But th like if you're evaluating like, well, is this gonna force me to like damage the relationship with my wife that I've worked on for like 20 years, or like my kids, or you know, these it might be a little impulsive to destroy those relationships based on, bettering your life or feeling that you've had like what you consider to be a good life. When you're looking at like the in the mirror at the end of your life, you're not gonna I don't think that the measure of the successful life is how good did I feel about my life. It's how did I make other people feel about their lives, and what did I bring into the world? What did people think of me? Not just what I thought of myself. I don't think that's as important.
Right.
Like, like, did I feel good? Was I happy with myself? No, like, what did I contribute? I think is a
Yeah,
more, you know, a healthier
absolutely.
question.
Absolutely. So, also kind of along the same lines of thinking about a healthier way to experience this whole process. Um, Instead of thinking this as a time crunch and I have to get in as much stuff as I can and before I die, instead try to utilize this time as an opportunity for growth and self-reflection. Like think about like what how they initially viewed this time period as like a passage
Hmm.
into a different stage of life and
Like a
development.
wiser presence,
Yeah,
something like
like
that.
starting to just view it differently. It's not about sitting here saying I have to reverse all the things I did wrong. It's what did I learn so far and how do I take that and continue to grow from it? So ways to work through the process of a midlife crisis. Well, first off, I would always say, you always want to identify what the issue is, right? So identify the changes or the behaviors that seem out of character to what your normal behaviors are. You could even ask people around you. Try not to judge, but rather explore and identify the attached feelings or fears. So if you notice that you're doing something different, try to figure out, well, where is that coming from? Why am I doing this differently? And, is it because I'm afraid of this thing? Is it because I'm afraid of, I think that if I don't do this, this thing's going to happen? Like just try to understand, get self awareness. This would also be a great time, a little plug, to get yourself into therapy. This
Hmm.
is much easier to go through if you are connected with somebody and sharing what you're going through. Just don't try to start a relationship with your therapist. That is not a good reason to get into therapy.
And
Just just get into therapy for the right reasons. Uh, you
oh, David,
want
there's
to
something you're
you
not
want to
telling
explore.
us. This
No, I can because
scandal.
I can almost can see how like based on everything we just discussed, you can almost see how like that could also be a very vulnerable time in your life, and then like suddenly you're talking to someone and they're listening to you and
Oh
they're
yeah.
validating you. That probably
Your
is going
your
to feel
wife or
really
your
good.
husband hasn't listened to you in like 17
Right.
years. Like,
Exactly. I can almost picture someone going into that feeling really heard and seen, and then suddenly, that's getting intermingled with other feelings. So you have to also, make sure you're keeping yourself in check. This is why I'm here. Um, give yourself time and take care of yourself during this time. Make sure you're doing all the things you need to do, getting rest, physical activity, you know, relaxation, all that stuff. Look to avoid making impulsive decisions and avoid acting on emotion or urgency. This is highly applicable to areas of relationships or changes in employment. I think that's the most common things you
yeah.
often hear, but also as Greg's referenced a few times, also making those big financial purchases that people sometimes make impulsively. Like try to avoid making them without putting in significant amounts of thought. This process can be as long as essentially you are dealing with the new version of yourself. So there's no like time limit. I think I read somewhere it was like people can deal with this for 3 months to like years, right? So
Yeah.
it's there's no time constraint on it, and for some people it's going to be quicker, and for some people it's going to be longer. Um, just accepting that there are maybe some new elements that may stay changed, and that's okay, I think is going to be a part of this as well, because even though things might feel good at first, as you're working through and kind of identifying, oh my god, this is what's happening, you might start to say like, oh, I'm a different person than I used to be. I don't know if I like this person. There are some aspects that are going to stay, and there's some aspects that hopefully you can kind of get back to, like
Mhm.
as reevaluating your values and getting back to how you used to make decisions. But work on growth rather than change. The grass is not always greener.
Love that idea of it. That's like the whole thing,
Yes.
right? I mean, really, that's the whole thing. Like you might now you get that now you have a young like whatever partner and
Right.
this
Right.
sucks. And maybe you guys like are connecting on the same. They're just the grass is not. I think part of this is like learning to be content with what you have, and that's the wisdom. I think that's you're trying to develop in mid age.
But also reevaluating what was it that made me happy in this relationship
Hmm.
previously and why does it feel so different now? And they think that like if you can explore that and maybe go through couples therapy or
Yeah.
something to like to see if you can get back to that.
Let me inject something into what I have. Like, how
Yeah,
do I make what I have? You know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the part of it that I think is different here. Is working through it means looking at what you have that you suddenly don't feel good about and trying to see what you can do to work on that situation to get yourself feeling better about it. But ultimately, I mean, some people just are different over time and maybe that means the relationship is not healthy for either person or they need to move on, but there should be time and
Yeah, like
conversation.
why should you think that your partner, and this isn't a male or female thing, it's like why should it be that, oh, if I'll feel better about myself when I have a different person in my life? That's a weird sort of thing if you really break that down.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you want to feel better in middle age or young age or old age, you have to do what Dave and I have sort of railed about and be someone who you could admire. And if you
Right.
can look at your life and say, maybe that's part of the reason why I'm feeling some angst. Like, I don't get dressed well. I don't, you know what I mean? I used to like kind of like put myself together for my partner. I used to go out with this person, or I used to like really put effort in at work. Maybe you fell off on a lot of those things. And maybe if you start being someone you admire, maybe you change and maybe you change. Maybe it's like a reevaluation, I think, right?
Sure.
That's like young. Let's lean on young on that stuff. That makes
uh,
sense to me.
Along the lines of the grass is not always greener, typically though change is needed from within us,
Mm,
not without,
mm,
meaning without whatever it is in our external. And I think that people want to, when you make an impulsive decision, typically you're making it to something external,
mhm.
right? You're not making an impulsive decision about I'm going to work on this on myself, right? You know, so it's
Yeah.
always something else needs to change and you don't look internally. And I think that's the biggest thing is the midlife crisis really does get you looking at your externals instead of your internals, but it's actually your internals that are changing.
I
So
agree.
work on that, look at that, and also utilize your values to make decisions. And if you don't know what your values are at this point in your life, get some therapy and have them help you work on identifying your values.
Yeah, and get it or like look online and try to figure out like what's a good process for me to learn my values or even um like to use that word that we just used. Like, who do you admire? Oh, okay. You admire this person. Well, what is it that you admire that about that person? Well, it's like holding up a mirror to yourself. Like, oh, I admire that in that person. Well, guess what? That's one of your values if you admire it in someone else.
Right.
Um, Dave, I think this would be fun to kind of mention. If people really want to go on a midlife crisis journey, they could do so in pop culture with just naming a few things here that kind of stuck out to me. American Beauty,
Yeah, that's a big one.
incredible, incredible sort of perfect um, version and great movie, I think. Breaking Bad or even Sopranos, a lot of midlife crisis in that too.
Sure.
But maybe the best for Dave and I, showing our age here a little bit, City Slickers.
Yeah, yeah. Billy Crystal,
Oh my God.
Daniel Stern, such a great
But
movie.
you know what? The way they did their midlife crisis, they went on like this like cowboy sort of hurting difficult. They did something difficult. They didn't like go like cheat on their spouses or anything like that. They stepped outside of the stuff. They went on their own little personal journey, like maybe a little man vacation or something like that, or a woman vacation just alone with no intention to do anything that was gonna like destroy their lives, just to kind of find themselves again. And I
Yeah,
think that's actually pretty cool.
yeah.
Um, Maybe we should have some kind of retreat one day if we have the money. I would love that. Falling down, and Dave's recommendation for this was personal recommendation. Wild Hogs.
I've never seen it either.
It's not bad.
I know of it and I know
Not
what
bad.
the premise is like. They have a midlife crisis, right? And they'll get motorcycles, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they go on a little trip, and they're not. See, that's what's like endearing about it. It's like go on a little trip with your guy friends. If you don't have any guy friends, you can do a solo bolo. Um, see what you can discover about yourself. I mean, maybe like
Yeah.
do something hard, whatever. But I wanted to mention these quarter life crisis movies too for our younger because I know we have like younger ones. They're probably
I
not.
I also I want to do a quarter life crisis episode.
All right. Well, we won't. We'll just get into
We
this.
you can still mention these, but
All right.
I really want to. I was actually going to ask you what it's called earlier.
Yeah. This is an
But
existential one for
yeah,
sure.
and I definitely want to do that. I think that'd
All
be
right, we can
great.
do that. St. Elmo's Fire, great movie. Reality Bites,
Reality
another
bites.
great movie.
Singles.
Singles is sort of very similar. Garden State, you like. I do
Yes.
not. I put that there for you. Fight Club, I like.
Hmm. That's quarter life crisis, you
Is
think?
is is why? Do you get the sense that Norton is? How old do you think he is?
That's
In
a great question.
you know what I mean? Because I think they're supposed to be about 25.
Oh, I always envision Norton as older.
Norton's looked to 40 since he was born, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess yeah, that's a all right, all right.
But Pitt looked 25, but he still kind of looks 25.
I feel like there's another thing that happens that Fight Club actually identifies. So if I were to have guessed, I would have said 30s. And I think
Okay.
something also
That might
happens in your
be
30s
yes.
when like I think 20s is existential like this quarter life crisis for those movies you mentioned, like
Yeah.
it's kind of this existential thing. And then the 30s, I feel like there's this isolation you start to feel because like suddenly you look around and you don't feel as connected to everybody, and maybe that's a time where you start to look for more connections, so you're
Third
kind of
life
like,
crisis. Like what would you even call
I
that?
don't
That's
even
something
know,
we get
but
to
I
name it and have an episode about it.
because I like he's going into like the the self-help groups and he's trying to make connection, he's trying to feel connection from people. I don't know that 20s is about 20 is about
30s,
figuring
I
out
mean, look at
yourself.
30s, you're starting a career probably. You're not like doing jobs anymore. Like it's different, right? Like there's also like maybe kids, there's also like people are getting married. There is a lot going on
You
in
start to feel distant from people you've used to know or you were always knew, or
so
you
the
don't feel as connected to them
totally.
for the
The
things
the
that,
quarter life crisis, your friends or your family. The 30-year-old
yes.
crisis is that's a transition away from that.
And you know what, a big transition in that period, and maybe that's another episode that we have to do, is the things that used to keep you connected so suddenly don't matter. Like I had most of my friends, we would go out and drink. It's like, what do you guys do together? What's your hobby together? We drink. Like that,
Hmm.
we're drinking buddies.
That's
And
right.
then you're in your 30s and like, I don't know. Like, what else do we have? Like, I don't know that I want to go out to the bar and just drink. Or so what else do we do? Oh, we don't really do much else. And you start to feel a little isolated.
And then you start to like maybe you hang out with these people and it's like during the day and you're like,
Yes.
I don't even know you, man.
Yes.
Like I don't even
So I think there's that might be more of Fight Club in my opinion, just my opinion. But I think that's another
a
stage.
phenomenon, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
All right. And one more like nod to this, which I think we need to do too. Um, coming of age, like the coming of age tale. Stand by Me.
Yeah. I was just thinking Stand By Me.
But like, Stranger Things too. I don't know, so many great ones. Like even maybe Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
That's like kind of
Oh,
like
100%. It's like, you
it's
see
a little
his,
later on. You do see him like coming up,
yeah. It starts when he's a kid. You want to see a dead body?
which starts a lot like Stand by Me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's a Stand By Me for, yeah. That for beginning is definitely Stand By Me with a different population.
absolutely. You want to see a dead
Yeah.
body. It's awesome.
Yes, I do.
The whole thing's that yeah, that's a great movie. Jeez. Um, but yeah, no, Never Ending Story. I don't know what we call that. I don't know why that movie sticks in my head so much. But I think that sort of wraps it up for all this. David, do you have anything else to add? I'm surprised that this was like I hope people don't shy away from like if they're not midlife, listening to this because I think this is kind of an important one. Like it does point to a lot of interesting
Yeah.
things.
So it's interesting though, the thing I asked you in the beginning, like, do you think it could happen sooner because of, people's development and kids becoming adults significantly earlier than I feel like they ever had with like the type of information they're given. But you actually said maybe later because of this arrested development, which I think it could be both,
I
right?
think it could
It
go too
definitely,
because I hadn't thought about it but until you just said it when it was like the information that they have at such an early age.
Yeah.
Is that does that heighten the development, or is it like overwhelming and it stunts it? It's like I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to know. So
Okay.
okay,
Interesting.
yeah, it is interesting.
All right. Well, I guess we will leave this with a question open-ended to everybody. What's your thoughts on that? Um, if you had a midlife crisis, tell us all about it. Tell us every detail of it.
Yeah,
Want
I
to
especially want to hear
know.
from like I want to hear from the men, of course, but I really want to hear from the women on this.
I also
Like,
want to
what's
hear from the men too, though, because I think it's interesting to hear how different people go through different things, right?
yeah?
So, like, I know what my midlife crisis looked like, and I'm curious to hear others.
You
So,
think yours is over?
no, yeah,
You're in
thanks
it.
for reminding me of
You're
that.
in it right
I'm
now.
in it right. It's happening right now, Greg. I'm done with this.
Oh my God, what
I'm
is it
moving
like?
on from you.
Is it like
I'm getting a younger podcaster.
oh God, you're gonna do like snack homies or whatever, like with the kids, you know?
Hot ones.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Psychology hot ones. We're just eating hot wings and talking psychology.
That's actually kind of
Damn, did I just make
yeah.
that up right now off
That's
the top of
actually
my
pretty
head?
good.
That's crazy.
That's a brilliant one. Yeah, do we need a shtick? Like, let's put that out to the community too, because like we have tons of wonderful listeners, and Dave always assures me. But like, I always feel like we got like snagged in like on at a certain. I want to appeal to more people. So what is it? Like, talk to us. What do we need to do? Do we need a shtick? We'll do a shtick.
I think the people that listen to us that actually like religiously listen to episodes and uh gain things out of this, I think they're above shticks. I don't
You're
think they
probably
would
right.
appreciate it. I think it would
You're
be
probably right.
patronizing.
Yeah, you're
And that's
probably
why
right.
I love our listeners, our viewers. I think that they're people that gravitated to this for a specific reason and they're very vocal about those reasons. And I
And
think
they've
we just
stuck around.
and if that kind of keeps us contained to some extent, I think it's worth it to have genuine connections with our listeners.
I agree. And if that being said, like, let us know on rate or review. Let us know because that really kind of energizes things for us, I think.
Sure. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Oh, I didn't even tell Greg this yet. Next week, we will have a re-release. Unable to record an episode, so the following week we'll be back with a new episode. So don't worry if there's a re-release next week. It doesn't mean anything other than just inability to record.
Ooh, this is actually fun because
Yeah.
thinking about which one.
Oh, I
You
know. We're
already,
gonna have to talk about that off
yeah, yeah,
air.
yeah.
So, yeah, I know. I was thinking about that earlier today. We get a lot to choose from.
Mm.
So, yeah. So re-release next week, and then following week, new episode. And yeah, we will see you then. John, Patreon, connect with us all over the place. Leave ratings and reviews, all that good stuff. See you later. Have a good night. Peace out.
Peace out.